Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing today? I hope that you are all doing well. Welcome to the Facebook Live. This is the event about winning contracts, unlocking the secrets to multiple seven figure business owners' success. And I want to start by saying hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday to you. And for those of you that are um, doing Ramadan, for you to be having a peaceful day today. I know that sometimes it can be difficult, but it is well worth it. You will feel so blessed, and it is part of your culture. So, for those of you that are celebrating Ramadan, I just wanted to mention that as well. So, thank you so much for being here today, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. It is time that we really make a pivot and look at what these multiple seven figure business owners are doing. And, I'm constantly speaking to them and really reaching out. And although I'm doing coaching with them, I also speak with them as well for finding out, how things are working for them, how they're getting on. For example, I speak to people for years and years and years. I always keep in touch with people just to keep make sure that they're okay. And the key here is to make sure that you make an effort. Okay, you can't just see something and then brush it to one side and think, this is too difficult for me, I can't do this. You have to try. The reason why you're in healthcare business, for example, the reason why you're in it is because you love what you do. You're passionate about what you do. And that drive has to really be the one that pushes you forward to get into your business so that you know how to work on your business. Not in it, but on your business. And, we've got some really strong trainings over the next few days that I want to be talking to you about. But really, I want to get you thinking in a way for your mindset, because your mindset has to be right first. You cannot be trying to build a business on scarcity, on fear. You've got to put the effort in as well by looking and searching for contracts. There's over 160 contract portals here. Is my internet working, team? Can you hear me? It's saying I'm live. Can you hear me? Angelina, can you hear me? If my team can let me know. Yes, you can. Excellent, you can hear me clearly. So I'm not sure why that was. So I'm going back into what I was saying, because it's really important that we look at our making sure that our mindset is ready to receive. Because if our mindset is not ready to receive, then it's going to become a big stress, confusion. We won't know how to handle things. So we've got to be ready to receive. Are you ready to receive? If you type in the chat, ready to receive, so that, I know that you're also ready to really listen and soak this up and take this on board, because we have to, as care providers, really be in the position to receive, because otherwise it will just fall. It won't work. So you have to really be ready to receive. And what do I mean by that? I mean by you being able to be organized, that you've got the systems in place, whether it's software, for example. What type of software do you have in place? Because I was speaking with a seven-figure business owner today, and she's done her own software, and I will be introducing you to her. She will be coming to do talks and things like that. But you have to be ready to receive. You've got to have the right systems in place in order to grow your business. Otherwise, it will become overwhelming. That's one thing that will happen, is that you won't know where you are. You will get lost. You won't know who is out doing what. Care practice, for example, you won't know in terms of how many hours that you've covered for that day. The software that we need to start introducing now is really going to really pivot your business into another level. For example, it will even help you to get leads in terms of candidates as well. So that's the reason why it's good to have a software, so that candidates can reach out to you as well. And you can also email and send them a message to say, are you available this week? We've got shifts to cover this week, for example. Okay, that's one reason. Another reason is for when you're applying for contracts. If you've got software, then you can say that you have this particular software. And I'm trying to cover the groundworks first before we go into the meats and potato, for example, of the contracting that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days. So what software do you have in place? If you don't have software, which is understandable if you don't have any clients, but you still need to know what type of software that you can implement ready to go for when you do have clients. And when I say software, it's usually when you get to about, say, 10 clients, for example, just to give you an idea of when software is usually needed when you're, looking after 10 clients or more, for example. Now, the next thing is that, are your staff members compliant? Because if they're not compliant, then you can lose quite a lot of opportunities. Okay? So the government, when you're working with government organizations as well as NHS, for example, the compliance is very strong. It's very strict. There's no room for any omittance. You've got to put everything forward. So whatever compliance they're asking for, you have to put them forward. They have to be in date, and they have to be real, for example. So that's one of the things that you need to prepare for when you're looking at contracting with organizations, because if you don't sort out your compliance, then you're not ready to receive, for example. So first of all, get your compliance sorted out. Obviously, you've got the staff members that are ready to go, for example, but they need to make sure that all of the compliance forms are filled in. Because at the end of the day, some of them are self-employed contractors anyway, so they should fill out the compliance form. But you can also help them to do that as well. Okay? So that's one of the things. Another thing is your location. Where are you going to operate? If you want to look at winning contracts, where are you going to operate? Are you going to do governmental contracts? Are you going to do NHS contracts? Are you going to do private paid contracts, for example? I spoke to one person today. I was so pleased to hear that they won a contract, okay, from the work that we've done together. And that gave me great joy. But you know what? She put in a lot of effort as well. It's a collaboration. It's a collaboration. And sometimes you don't feel like reading all of those compliance documents that you have to read, because you're the business owner. You're the one that's liable for when things don't go right. They want to make sure that you have read and that you understand what is being given to you, because you have to deliver the service. So you can't just expect to get a contract and then it's going to work that way. You've got to read all of the content, read all of the pages, read all of the evaluations, the criterias, and also read about how you're going to match what the buyer wants. Can you provide that service? Do you have staff members that are qualified? And when I say qualified, do they have the certificates in place, their DBS? Because they will pick the highest level of agency that meets their needs, so that reduces their risk factor, for example. So these are the things that you need to think about when winning your contracts. Do you have the relevant insurance in place? What else do you do for your staff members? Do you provide them with training? Because things change all the time. So 2024, have you done training with your staff members? Don't wait for that year to come up and then go, oh yeah, we're going to do some training. Look at the contract that you want to attract, and then you will then look at the staff members and what training do they have. So which training do staff have that meet that particular contract? That is key. So that's another expression of looking at winning a contract. But you've got to really be prepared to receive. And you've got to start getting your notepad and paper out. Literally, notepad, paper, write out, what it is that you need to do as an organization. What do you need to do as an organization to win that contract? You need to think about having your staff members that are high caliber. Okay, that's winning ways. So I'm going to talk to you about winning ways. High caliber staff members. What do I mean by that? That they've got specialist training to enable them to deliver the service for your organization. Okay, so we don't have to keep we don't have to keep saying we are live, okay? Because I think if we've done at everyone's seen it. So I know for those of the ones that have registered, for example, then yes, we need to send it to the ones that have registered for the event. So going back into that is that we need to look at the winning ways to get contracts, making sure staff members are of high caliber. The generic, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, generic carers, for example, may not be suitable for government contracts. Okay, are you getting what I'm saying here, everybody? So you need to make sure that your staff members have got specialist training. What do I mean by specialist training? Of course, there's the mandatory training, which everybody has. Carers, for example, and nurses. But what specialist training have they had? Is it mental health? Is it complex care that they have that's going to make them stand out more than the average Joe Bloggs agency? And I keep saying that because there's a lot of agencies out there that are the average Joe Bloggs. You in 2024 have got to be the higher level agency, the high need agency that they are stumbling with and need help with in order to become successful. Okay, so have you gone out into your community to find out what the need is by speaking with social services, for example, or by speaking with recovery teams if it's mental health, for example, speaking with secure units, speaking with private hospitals? What aspects of looking for contracts have you done in terms of that? Yes, there's care homes, but what about the specialist care homes that you could look at providing a service to? Dementia care. You could have specialist staff members. I'm just going to drink my water. Specialist staff members will get you contracts. Not generic staff members, they have to be specialist. They have to be like support workers that are specialist. They have to be nurses that are specialist. Complex care, for example. So look at what team members you've got currently, and do they meet the criteria to pass the accreditation? Because sometimes they will choose the best person, which is understandable, for the job, for example. So when you're looking at winning contracts, you got to think about what type of contract do you want. Do you want generic type of contract where you're providing just personal care, for example, elderly, frail, children services, for example? Do you have that? Are you skilled in that? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Then there's also adults, which have mental health that you could specialize in. Then there's also end of life, palliative care that you could specialize in. Or you could even say, right, we specialize in private clients. We will only deal with private clients, and there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, you have to do what is best for you and your business. So what is it that you truly want that's inside of your heart of hearts that you know that you want for your business? You may want to do temporary staff members, provide temporary staff members. You may want to do permanent placement where you're placing staff permanently, and I spoke about this last week. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be going into contract portals, and I'll be sharing my screen and things like that. We'll be going into that, whereby I will be sharing my screen and showing you some contract portals that you can go onto to get contracts. But first of all, you got to understand what it is and who you're going to be providing to, because I'm not going to just jump straight into that today, because I want to make sure that you're in the right mindset and frame so that you can have more insight and it will be more productive for you. So I want you all to think about what type of staff members do you want to provide, or contractors that you want to provide for your healthcare business. So another thing is the location. What location will you be in? Will it be the whole of the UK, or are you going to choose certain aspects of the UK, like north, south, east, west, for example? So what is your location? Maybe you want to be in, say, London, and then give yourself a 20-mile radius to travel so that your staff members are traveling. And sometimes you have to interview staff members where a particular contract is. That means that you may have to go out of your comfort zone and interview candidates that live in a certain location because you got a contract there. So that's one thing. Another way for winning contracts is making sure that you have followed, for example, if you're in the UK, the NHS guidelines for employers, for agency staff. There's also you have to think about the working time directive as well, making sure that people are not going over the hours, and to make sure that they are working within the limits. If they're going to go over those hours, then they need to agree and sign for that as well. So I really want to make sure that everybody is sort of getting into this system where we're building the pillars to enable us to then be able to apply for contracts, okay? Now, whether you decide to, your clients, you need to look at who your pipeline is. Okay, so your pipeline is it care homes? What is your priority? Will it be care homes first, NHS second, for example, private hospitals third, in the community fourth, for example? That's temporary agency, but what about permanent agency? Placing 2 people a month can produce you over, say, 150,000 a year, just by placing just 2 people a month to organizations that require nurses and healthcare workers. So sometimes you may get it where a care home may say, you know what, I need 36 nurses this year, because they know that there's going to be a shortage, especially if they're a very large care home. I would suggest approach the really large care homes as well. So if you was to place 36 nurses in a year, for example, and that's, say, for example, if they're paying 35,000, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head here, right? So that's like, how much is 36 nurses times 37,000? It's 1,332,000. So you're going to be billing 1,332,000, for example, worth of work, but you're not going to get all of that, okay? But you'll get, for example, you may say, you know what, because you're going to give me that, you're going to make me a preferred supplier, for example, then I will do that, but you to use me first, I will do it at, say, 10 or 15%. So let's start with 15%, because you always want to start off high, okay? So times that by 15, that then gives you 199,000, nearly 200,000 a year. In dollars, that's more. You know, by placing 36 nurses a year, if we divide that by 12, you know, that's 3 nurses a month. Isn't that a lot easier? Hashtag easier. Because if you can do that and get 200,000, a year, and the only overhead you've got is like your light, electricity, your mobile phone, your insurance. You're not having to pay staff wages, you're not having to pay. I'm trying to show you easy methods for 2024, okay? I want to make it easier for you. And that's just me giving you an example. If you was to do support workers or healthcare workers, if you want to start off at that level, then you can do. And it could be, for example, they need 15 healthcare workers and 36 nurses, for example. That could come from one place, because in care, the turnover is high. Wouldn't you agree? So You could help provide a hospital with nurses, for example, and you could get a contract that's like, say, 250,000 for the year. Okay, and I'm just talking to you about this, okay? Why not look at the permanent option as well? And I'm going to go through this over the next couple of days, where I'm going to show you about the temp and the permanent option that you can look at for contracting, for example. But it all depends on how much time you've got on your hands and how much strength that you've got with running a healthcare business, because it's not easy. It's difficult. I'm not saying it is easy. I'm not saying it's a get rich quick scheme, because it's not. If you've gone into this to get rich quick, that's the wrong way to do it, because sometimes things take time and you have to be patient. So what type of healthcare business are you currently running? So let's go into the next thing. What is your competitors doing that you like and see, that you could perhaps emulate? And it's okay to do that, because if they're winning and they're doing really well, why would you not want to emulate what they're doing? It just makes sense, doesn't it? So what type of agency are you going to be? Because before you apply for these contracts, you've got to know what type of service you're going to provide, what level of service you're going to provide, what are your charges, so what will you charge for being a recruitment care agency, for example. You're going to be placing healthcare workers and nurses into care homes, for example. Then you look at what the hourly rate is for the carer in the location of where you are. Then you're going to put your percentage on top, which could be, for the UK, for example, 65%, for example. If it's NHS, then you have to look at the price caps and keep it at 50% and under. Don't go too low, because you want to make sure that you're profitable. The big companies can go really low because they see it as a short-term loss, because they think that they're going to gain from that, okay? So what type of healthcare business are you going to do? Before we start looking at applying for contracts, we've got to look at how we're going to win the contracts. What makes a winning contract? What makes that buyer buy from a supplier like you, and you win that contract? So we have to make sure that we're laying the groundwork first, the foundations, in order to do that. Another way that you can win contracts is through subcontracting. Find out who's won contracts, and then we can approach them. You can approach them, for example, to see whether they want to work with you. You introduce yourself, and then you speak with them and let them know that you're able to provide them with staff. So this is like a live stream, for example. So we need to look at ways that we can grow our business in a quick, effective, efficient way, without us stumbling and falling when we don't know what we're doing when we do get the contract. Because if that happens, it can be taken away from you, and it could put you at risk at other contracts as well. So what is it that you're going to offer that's going to enable you to have winning contracts? What is your branding like? What does your branding look like for your healthcare business? What is it that you're offering that's different from everyone else? That you can articulate that. But one thing I'll say to all of you is to go into your community and find out what the need is before you approach any government organization, because then that way they know that you've done your research and that you're there to help support them as well. So what is it that you can do in your community to find out what the needs are so that you can win a contract? By speaking with the community, by speaking with the organizations that are in the community, you then, when you talk with the councils, for example, or the NHS, you can discuss that you've spoken with the community, you held a meeting at this location, at a community centre, for example, and you spoke to the people, and this is what they said they want. And I'm able to provide that service, for example. So hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, hashtag live if you're watching the live. So I hope everyone's understanding where I'm coming from and where we are at the moment. We're laying the foundations for winning a contract, okay? And I hope that you've got your pen and paper or computer, for example, and making some notes. We need to then look at where are we going to find clients that we want to work with. So there are a number of ways of doing this. Is, like I said, you go into the community, speak with your community, talk with them to see what the needs are. For example, what are the needs in your community? That's one way. Another way is by speaking with social services and the integrated care boards, speaking with your GP surgery in that location, for example. There's multiple different ways that you can speak to your audience by going into the community, seeing what events is happening, as well as, for example, there could be cafes, there could be charities to do with the age group that you are looking to work with. Go in to that charity and speak with them, because you never know, they may allow you to hold an event. You can hold an event even in a cafe. There's various cafes around in the UK, that is. And you could say, I'm holding an event. Does anyone want to know how to do that? Because that's a whole new video on itself. And in the next coming weeks, that I'm going to be going live in the Facebook group here, because there's going to be the training that I said about CQC, which is going to be next week. There's other trainings that you've mentioned that you'd like to have some training on. So I do plan to be in here weekly, for example, going live, as well as on YouTube and TikTok, for example. But I want you to think about the organizations that your clients visit or are involved in, working with multidisciplinary teams to talk to them about the needs of the service right now. What is the current needs? And you need to find this out. So when we go through applying for contracts, for example, which is tomorrow and Friday, for example, then you've got a good idea of who you want to work with. Is it government? Is it the private sector? Is it the NHS? because you need to be aware of these organizations and decide which ones you want to work with, not just sort of go in blindly. I want you to think about what it is, and then you've got to also be thinking about your pricing structure. What are you going to pay your staff members? What will you charge per hour after the staff member's been paid, for example? So if you're paying them, say, £12 or $12 an hour, then what is your rate on top? It can be, for example, you could do 65% or 70%, depending on the organization itself. When you're dealing with government organizations, then yes, they are strapped financially, for example, so the margins will be a lot tighter unless you go for specialist needs. Then the margin is higher for specialist needs. So I want you to think about your client, what type of client that you want to serve. And then you've got to look at the staff members' wages that you're going to pay them. Then on top of that, what is your cost to provide that service? Because you've got your mobile phone to think about that you use for your business. You may have an office or may not have an office. You may have a virtual office. That costs. Then you've got your, for example, your ink that you pay when you print something out. Then you've got your hosting. Then you've got your website domain that you have to pay for. You've got your insurance that you have to pay for. You've got uniforms possibly that you're paying for. So what is it that you're going to be offering? And then this all needs to be broken down that gives you an hourly rate. And I'm referring to temporary placements here. Temporary placement is when you place someone temporarily with an organization, which could be, 12-hour shift or 6-hour shift, or even depends if you're doing home care in the community, it could be 45 minutes, 1 hour shift if you're doing domiciliary home care services where you're providing staff and they're going in the community and they're driving from one place to the other. So they'll be at someone for 1 hour, they could be at another place for half an hour, for example. The rate that you charge depends on the location and the work that's involved. So if they are doing low needs, then for example you're paying them say £11.50 an hour, then your rate on top of that is probably going to be about £16-17 an hour, depending on your location of where you are. So you have to do your research for the location of where you're going to provide that service or where that contract actually is as well, so that you can give a good pricing. So that way you can say, right, my price is, because you'll need to break it down, you're going to pay the carer. In order for the carer to step on site, just alone is this price. Okay, so you pay the carer £12, then you would say £12. Then there's the company's fees. Our margin, our charge rates are 60%, for example. So then that could equate to, so if you're paying someone, say £12 an hour, then there's 65. So then your £7.80 is your charge rate per hour. Then you're going to say your total charge is £19.80 per hour to put a staff member into the establishment on a temporary basis. Your hourly rate would be this, £19.80, for example. Okay? If you're sending staff members into care homes, into hospitals, for example, it all depends on the level of service again that you're providing. So if it's medium to high needs, then your price will be different than the low needs price rate that I just mentioned to you. So if you're doing medium, then you would look at your rate is the staff member is being paid, for example, 15, 16, 22 pound an hour, for example, then your rate is 65 pounds. Sorry, 65% is your rate on top of that. So if the staff member is being paid £25 an hour times 65, your rate is then £16.25 per hour, plus your staff member to step on the premises. So then your rate is then £41.25. Now, if you are providing a higher level of service, then your rate could be that you're paying the staff member £40 an hour. Okay, so then 65% of that is £26 that you're charging as a company. Your charge rate is £26 an hour, and that person is being paid the 40 an hour, for example. So then you're then charging, say, £65 an hour. So you see where I'm coming from. The higher up you go, the better the margin is for your company. The profitability is better. And then you then are able to reach your 7-figure a lot quicker. Okay? So if you was, for example, providing permanent staff members, like I mentioned before, just by providing 3 staff a month, for example, nurses that I mentioned earlier, it gave 200,000, didn't it? So to get that to 1 million, for example, that is, you need what, 15 staff members? Yeah, so you got to times that 3. Let me just do this. 3 times 5, that's 15, times, let's do 15 staff times 37, 555. So 37, let's just do that again. So you need to place 15 staff members a month at 37,000. You're invoicing, for example, you're billing, the amount really is 555, but that's the wages, but you're getting a percentage of that, which is going to be, say if you did 15%, you would then be on 83,000 a month by placing 15 staff members permanently. That's not residual, the same 15 staff members. Every month you've got to find new staff, 15 staff. So you keep placing, you do the same thing the month after. You can mix this with healthcare workers and nurses. It's up to you how you do it. So if you place 15 nurses at 37,000, and then you're charging, you may even do 10%, but I'm just going to say 15%. So again, 83,250 in month 2. And then you do the same, because when you're looking at that, earning that amount of money, and you're doing temporary work, you got to do treble more to earn that. And I'm referring to you here in terms of placing permanent staff members. Permanent staff members. So you haven't got the wage bill to pay. You haven't got the PAYE to pay, for example. All you've got to pay for is your costs, like if you've got virtual office or whatever, your mobile phone, all of your expenses, your profitability is more like 80 to 85% net profit. So if I was to do this, right, so let's take off 20% if you've been extravagant, right? So that's 16,000 a month for your expenses, which I don't think you would use that much, to be honest with you. But then it will give you 60,000 a month for placing people permanently. Are you getting me? Because this is gold. What I'm giving you here, it's gold. Because as you get stronger and stronger month by month, you're gonna learn. You'll start off with 2 staff, then you'll start off with 3, then you start off with 4, then 5, then 6. You'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, because the organization is going to come to you to place staff, because they know that you're going to really be looking and sourcing for staff for them. I want you for 2024 to have a work-life balance where you enjoy what you're doing and it's not becoming stressful for you, for example. Whereas when you're placing temporary workers, for example, and we do it this way, 83,250 is what you're bringing in a month. For example, we divide this by, I'm just going to do it, divide by 4, so that's 20,000 a week. Let's then look at how many staff members that you need to put in. So say if you was paying someone, say £22 an hour, that's a lot of staff. So you've got to look at that £22 an hour that you're paying them. But let's really break this down. If we say 20,000 a week and your rates are, say for example, if it's £23, you got to cover 869 hours to get, it's nearly 1,000 hours a week to get 20,000 a week. Whereas when you place 3 staff members a week, for example, permanently, is giving you 20,000. This 869 hours for the temporary workers that I just mentioned, hours that you need to cover in order to make the 20,000 a week. Let's divide that by 40, just to give you an example. So you need 21 staff members to be working to produce 20,000 a week, as opposed to 3 staff a week to produce 20,000 a week. Whereas with the temporary staff members that you're placing for the 869 hours a week, you got to pay all of the bills. You got to pay the tax, possibly, the tax, unless they're contractors, for example. So you've got that to deal with. Then you've got all the paperwork that you're dealing with, the rostering. Then you've got your staff members that have to manage those hours a week. It adds up. It's still profitable, don't get me wrong, but the work that it takes to place 21 staff members a week is more work than placing just 3 staff members a week with care homes, hospitals, etc. And you know what? There's no on call. No on call. There's no issues apart from if the person doesn't turn up. You always make sure when you're doing a permanent placement that you've got a backup to put in place just in case the person steps away and doesn't show up, for example. And it's the same for when you're providing temporary staff as well, because they don't show up, so you've got to always have a backup. But I just want to leave you with today to think about what type of agency do you want to be in your heart of hearts. What type of agency do you want to be? Where do you want to start with? That's going to fit in with your family life, that is not going to cause you mental stress, that is not going to cause your staff members to be overworked, for example. Where do you really see yourself realistically? Are you doing permanent placement or are you doing temporary placement? Which one? Because one is more heavier than the other. You want it light, and you want to also make a profit from it, and you want to have that work-life balance. So what do you think, everyone? Comment in the chat. Do you want to do temporary agency or permanent agency? Tomorrow, because we'll be finishing shortly, tomorrow we're going to go into where to look for permanent placements, and we're going to look for where to look for temporary placements. So let me know, do you want work-life balance? Let me know, do you want temporary? Let me know, do you want permanent placement? Because tomorrow will be an eye-opener for you. Because I think we need to start looking at what is really what we really, really want. What do we want? Because we may, like I said, we may see this agency that is doing extremely well and they're really, really busy. But what is going on behind the scenes that you're not seeing? Do you think they're getting work-life balance? I don't think so. Do you think that they're on call constantly? Out of hours? Do you think when they've gone home with their mobile phone, they've got the on-call phone, do you think that phone doesn't ring because someone's gone off sick or someone's running late, or there's been a serious issue or a staff accident? There's so many things that you have to deal with when you're doing a temporary agency, and you got to be in a strong position to be able to cope. And sometimes you have to neglect your family, and I'm being truthful and honest here. You have to get someone to come and look after your child or something whilst you rush out and see to someone to make sure that they're safe. So what is the balance that you want for your life? Do you want the heavy or do you want the light? So I hope that you found this helpful today, because tomorrow's training I'm going to be showing you about the temp and the permanent contracts, but you need to understand what type of agency do you want to be, because there's no point, otherwise you're guessing. You got to think. Is this right for me? Does this fit in with my family life? can I do this long term? If you're doing something short term, that's different because, you know, it's a short term thing, but long term, it will have an effect if you don't scale and grow with staff members and team members, because you can't do this all by yourself. So I hope that you've enjoyed today. Let me know in the comments that it was helpful and that you've really understood where it is that you want to be, because 2024 is about really stopping, pausing, looking at where you want to be. And it's okay to pivot. It's okay to pivot. So we have got our boot camp, which is next week. We've got a guest speaker on. We've got our coach on as well. We've got the one of the group members is going to be doing a presentation on software, for example, for your agency as well in the boot camp. We're going to have them here as well. I'm not just saying just for the boot camp, but we do have the boot camp next week, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. It's 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for example. But tomorrow, what I'd like you to do is to stay tuned and to join me tomorrow, because I'm going to go into the contracts for permanent and temporary placements. Do book a free 15-minute with our team so that we can discuss with you about our contract service as well as our boot camp that we've got next week, which is the contracts boot camp, which starts at 9 o'clock till 5 p.m. We've got, at the moment, we've got 16 staff members on the team as well. So we've got 4 in our bid writing team, we've got 4 in our recruitment team, we've got 3 in our social media team as well, and we've got admin and personal assistants as well. So I hope that you found today helpful. Do book a free 15-minute consultation with myself or our team, and we will gladly help you to decide whether you want to go the permanent route or the temporary contracts route. Okay, because there is plenty of work out there for everyone, but think about what you want to do for 2024. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Please do give me some likes in the comments here. Let me know that you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay. I can't see your comments at the moment, so I'm kind of just talking here to the camera that I can see in front of me. So thank you so much everyone for being here. I hope that you've enjoyed today. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care. God bless you. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye everyone. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Katharina. I've just seen you there. Thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye.